Welcome to In the Spotlight. I'm Janelle Broderick, joined today by Jenny Mail, Fatima Quander, and Brandon Mervite from the devised play, I Love Lucy. Jenny, so nice to see you. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello, it's so great to be here.
My first question is to you. How was it decided to take on such a large project of a devised play for the semester?
Well, we were looking at different pieces we might be able to do over Zoom or possibly in the space. And because we wanted a piece that could work either way, depending on the situation health-wise, we decided it was best to try an opportunity with the students in devising. And this is the first time we've had this kind of show that I know of for the HCC theater program, where all of the students have contributed to the text of the show. And part of what's also been so exciting is that I had the opportunity to co-direct this wonderful show with Fatima Quander, who is our head of devising.
So how was the team pulled together in terms of the creative team? Can you tell us a little bit about your role in the project?
For me, I can say that I sort of helped bring the team together of our wonderful costume designer and light designer. We have sound designers, because we are actually getting to perform this in the studio theater, which is the first time some of these students have been on campus in a year. And we had our first rehearsal last night, and it was very special. It was a very exciting thing for us to be able to do this. And so bringing all of that together logistically has been actually a wonderful, smooth process, and I couldn't be prouder of the students.
That's fantastic. So Brandon, what was it like for you as a student to get involved in this production?
It was interesting. I've done some writing for a production that Jenny did before, but nothing this directly hands-on. And it was a fun process. It was hard at times with we had like 12, 13 different writers all working on the exact same script. So at times it was difficult, and there's a lot of compromises that had to be made, but they're good compromises to where at first you're not sure about this idea, and then you look at it a week later and you just love it.
And Fatima, the task of taking on a devised work, can you tell us about that process in your experience in the past and what you brought to this production? How did you get the students involved in starting this process? For some of them, I imagine it was the first time.
Sure. Well, my background is really in like traditional theater, and in my professional life within the past maybe like 5 or 6 years, I've been doing more devised theater where the cast comes up with, the script themselves. Usually in my professional world, the cast is no more than 4 people, and it's people that have been working in the business for a long time. When you're working with students who are still figuring out what works for them, what they like, what they don't like, it's a learning process for everybody. Some days people leave and they're frustrated because their idea doesn't fly with the rest of the group. But, through the process, the students, as Brandon was saying, learn to compromise. They think of what's best for the entire group. And ideally, they love, the end product. I think what's so wonderful about Devise, though, is that it really is a one-of-a-kind piece that everybody throughout the process can feel proud of from beginning to end. The students 100% have really just committed themselves to this very challenging process. And the fact that we had our first like in-person rehearsal on campus, it felt like it was like celebrity sightings, like seeing people in real life and being like, oh my goodness, you exist, 6 feet over there. But they have all worked so hard and are so dedicated and so excited that even though the process has been long and challenging, it just is 100% worth it. It's been so positive.
Brandon, the play is centered around the experience of 4 humans who have descended into hell and end up on a game show. Yes?
Yes.
What were the conversations like in this devised process the themes that all of you students brought to the table. What were these discussions like that came to this plot?
A lot of it came from our main theme, and this is a thing Fatima loves to do, is come up with a bunch of themes that everyone has and then pick and choose from which ones everyone likes. And the one we all ended up universally agreeing on was hell isn't exactly what we thought. And we just started making stuff related to the ideas of that or whatever we had the idea of. And I know the game show bit came from me and two other students, just the idea of you drop in and you think it's heaven, but it turns out it's a big prank. And then we molded that to be a game show, and just a bunch of similar ideas of what can we take that hell is typically like, ouch, it's hot and it's burning and torture, and why don't we make it a little more fun?
So you think it's been this idea of making it a little bit fun, has that provided you and some of the students an opportunity to like have fun and release and connect?
I think so, as much as you can connect in Zoom or like even 6 feet apart theater, which is not nearly as evil. It's not nearly as easy to connect as if you can like physically be right next to someone. But I think the play that we wrote has plenty of opportunities for people to form connections even at a distance through just knowing the play so well. I think that's been the main thing, is we wrote it together so we know it and we know what connects and who knows what. And I think that's been a big improvement. If we would have just done another play, I don't think we would have had the same connection.
Can you tell us a little bit about your character and the journey that you went through in having this opportunity to shape where your character would go?
Yeah, I am playing Satan, which is just lovely that Jenny would put me there. Says a lot about what she thinks of her favorite student. But I did a good amount of writing for the demons in the devised piece. Some people picked specialties. I really liked writing for the demons, non-human characters. So I was happy to be placed as one of them. And I got a lot of my inspiration from Brandon Sanderson books, where there's a lot of very like 3-dimensional characters that appear that they're one way and to everyone else they do, but they have stuff going on in the background. And it's a book, so it's harder to portray, but trying to get that off through acting has been a really nice challenge.
You knew from the beginning that this would be a filmed production. And knowing that, going into this project with that in mind, I'm wondering, and this question really is for Fatima and Jenny, how did that shape how you would write the script? And then how would it affect the staging, right? You're not staging for entrance and exits, because you can film out of sequence even. This is almost a production for film instead of for stage. So how did that impact the script development and the staging? And now let's start with Fatima.
Sure. In terms of the script development, I would say that it didn't really impact it that much. You know, I feel so blessed to work with Jenny, and I have just 100% like trust in her and her process and what she's able to build. So in working with the students, I knew that whatever they came up with, Jenny would be able to make it look amazing. I know the students also were really specific in terms of their stage directions. So if there were certain essences or ideas that they wanted to be captured on film, they were able to write it in those stage directions and infuse their own ideas once it was cast. But in terms of like writing this, it definitely is a play. If you were to see the format and the way that it looks and is written, it follows the like traditional play format. It's not a screenplay. And that was important to us. You know, we wanted to make sure the students knew and felt that this was theater and that they were working on a play, because film is a whole different medium, and we're a theater focused program, so we wanted to make sure that we were sticking with what we know and what we love.
So it's been interesting to block over Zoom since we've had predominantly Zoom rehearsals. That was a first, and it's very interesting and it's difficult. But just giving them the idea of you enter stage right or exit stage left, it's mostly that, or you're up in the catwalks. But then last night, actually being in the space, we blocked almost half of the show within 3 hours. And yes, the blocking is a little simpler than I would normally do, but at the same time, I felt it was great for their characters. Brandon, for example, got to have a lot of fun as Satan on a throne at center stage, and has dramatic entrances that our lighting designer will be able to follow Satan with a spotlight and do all, and there'll be fabulous music in the background. And so I'm really excited to see them develop these characters and get to move around the space, and which has been really special. So as we have 2 more staging rehearsals, then later next week, we'll have our first run through. And just what you said, it's a little bit different in that I don't have to do transitions. I'll just say cut, and then we'll move furniture and then continue on for the next scene. We won't have to have those moments, but we will get to run it 2 to 3 times, even for the film crew. But then when we film it, it will be out of order to make it be as efficient as possible for everyone.
And Brandon, how does that impact you as an actor? Do you feel like you're acting for the theater or acting for the camera? If it's, you're playing to the back row or playing for the camera that's in closer proximity.
I've only taken one acting for the camera class before, but definitely the way Jenny has pushed it is acting for the stage. I don't know exactly how it will be when they get us mic'd up and have cameras around us, but it's still going to be a social distanced camera. It's not going to be in our face, so we don't have to worry about that. And a big focus with Jenny is projection and ending your sentences, making sure you hit all the consonants. So it's definitely much more of a theater than a film production.
So Jenny, how many students are involved in this production?
Oh my goodness, I think we have about 10 that are in the main cast, and then we have several alumni that have come back for small roles, which has just been a joy to have some of our previous students come back in these smaller roles for these wonderful comic bits. Are just hilarious. So I'm very grateful that we've had a couple come back. One student is even joining us over Zoom. Allie too, who can't join us physically, will play a therapist over Zoom in the show. So she'll be able to record her section.
That seems to be one of the benefits of working in this remote environment, really, is it opens some doors. Have there been other realizations that you've had that this virtual world has allowed you to do some things you didn't consider before? Anybody?
Yes, to say, Fatima, do you want to talk about how that relates to writing over Zoom?
Yeah, a lot of times, at least in my experience, the early part of the devising process, you're in the room together, and sometimes you're on your feet, you're doing all kinds of exercises and movement and flocking together. We couldn't do that here. So we had to come up with other individual, like writing-based exercises. And I think one time we had a bit of a, I don't remember exactly, I need to look at my notes, but we had one exercise where they had to go and find or create an art piece with whatever they had available at home so they can come and present to the group. And then we, have reflections and write in response to that. So we had to kind of switch the way that we work, but we were still able to find things that create that ensemble and the cohesion and for people to feel like they were thinking outside of the box. So it definitely changed the process a little bit, but in this Zoom world, we all have to be flexible. And I think for the most part, the students were really happy that they still were able to be creative and see each other, on a regular rehearsal schedule. So little tweaks here and there, but it definitely has felt like a traditional rehearsal schedule. Yeah. or rehearsal experience rather. Yeah.
Brandon, can you tell us a little about you as an HCC student, about your journey at the college and the experiences that you're having this year in relation to your experiences before we were working remotely?
Sure. Yeah. I've had a kind of interesting HCC journey where I went from high school to HCC because I didn't know what I wanted to do and it seemed like a reasonable next step. My father and grandfather are accountants, so I said, let me try this out. I was about a year in, maybe a year and a half. And then one of the students, Jordan Stanford, invited me to be in the Rocky Horror Shadowcast that was the first time ever being put on. And from there, I got introduced to the teachers and other students there. And I realized it's a lot more fun when you're doing something you like. And I don't hate accounting. I could be a fine accountant, but I really like and love what I'm doing. And online Zoom is the first semester was a big challenge for me. The going to school and then not knowing that it was going to turn into Zoom is just like put a big damper on like the experience, because the teachers had to learn on the fly, we had to learn on the fly, and there's just different things you do to prepare. If I'm going to prepare a monologue for class, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to like feel the energy, I'm going to be able to go off of like how I'm feeling. At home, it's just me and a couple of cats, and they're not good scene partners. But second semester into this semester has been a lot better. The teachers have been wonderful. Like, they learned incredibly fast how to teach like very interesting and compelling Zoom classes that some I feel are just better fitted to be online anyway.
What is your plan for the future in terms of the rest of your coursework at HCC and transfer?
So I applied to graduate like a couple weeks ago with the general studies, because it's going to be very difficult to stay at HCC for 5 years to get the degree. But depending on where I go, I plan to transfer to a 4-year and pursue a theater degree. It just depends on when and how much stage combat Jenny lets me do with her, because Jenny's the best punching teacher I've ever had.
She is. So, Jenny, can you see a future where educating students on how to go about producing remotely would be part of standard curriculum?
Yes, I think that being on Zoom and finding out it does have possibilities, I think it is definitely something that we should start incorporating into what we do, because it also gives students the opportunities to meet and work together where they don't have to worry about transportation, all that travel time away from home. So this is easier for their schedules. So it might even be a mix of that, where one day a week is over Zoom and one day a week is at the college. So it's much easier on their daily lives and doing homework. So yeah.
Fatima, do you find some benefits? I don't think you live near the college. So is there a commute benefit?
Yeah, there's definitely a commute benefit. I live in DC. So before classes shut down last year, I was, traveling to campus 5 days a week because I taught every single day. And like what Brandon was saying, when everything first went remote, we were all kind of in survival mode. We were just trying to make sure students felt supported and weren't scared. And we were also scared. So, but I'm really thankful that HCC prepared us so well and offered so many resources for students, but also for faculty and staff. And now this semester and last fall semester, things are like a lot more clear and easy. And I have my schedule and it feels just like regular school minus my hour there and back commute, you know. But still, I love HCC. Campus is beautiful. I'm hoping for things to open up, but it has been a nice little break to not have to, you know, drive so much every single day of the week.
There's definitely pros and cons to the
Yeah.
environment, right?
Pros and cons for sure.
So I Love Lucy is streaming this spring, and audiences will be able to view it online. What are your hopes for what audiences take away? We're in this time right now that people are really leaning on entertainment as a way to relax, refresh, rejuvenate, and find a time to just enjoy, right? So what are you hoping that I Love Lucy gives the audience? Let's start with Fatima.
I am hoping that the audience really can watch the show and escape for an hour and a half or however long it ends up being. You know, I really want the audience to see and experience the resiliency of our students, their creativity and their dedication and their joy, because they have worked so hard, you know, on writing, on creating these characters, on creating this world, on puppeteering. They have really just, you know, met all expectations and exceeded them. So I really want the audience to see the amazing group of students that we have, and hopefully, you know, if there's some high schoolers watching, that they would get interested in coming to HCC because they see how wonderful the students are. So that's what I hope people take away from our show.
Brandon?
I would hope that people get away is some sense of enjoyment. But besides that, if I would to say one thing, is it's been hard for me to like be creative and express myself just in my own home. I like going to a specific space, and because it's not somewhere where I'm comfortable, it forces me to like ramp it up and go to like the next level. With that being said, even though I'm not able to do that, that even though we're stuck at home, you can still be creative and you can still create something even with everything going on.
Thank you. Jenny, anything to add?
Just two things that, yes, I want the audience to be inspired by the students' creativity, to see them actually in a theater space. That's the other thing, is that the arts are coming back. It will be slow, but we are working in a safe way to make sure that there will be that experience again. And I think that's the exciting thing, is seeing the students with joy telling a story with lights and sound and costumes, and just seeing art again on stage. And I'm hoping that will just be inspiring and joyful.
Thank you. Is there anything that any of you would like to add about this experience you think that viewers would benefit from knowing about this process? Yes, Brandon?
I just want to shout out to Jenny and Fatima for being incredibly accommodating, especially with, like you said, the script writing process. I wrote like the entrance, huge pillars of fire appear and all this other stuff. And I was like, I can get rid of that if you want, but they were just like, no, it's perfect. You can keep it. Like, we might not be able to get you huge pillars of fire, but it helps us know more what you want. And just, even though I'm saying ridiculous things and writing them down on paper so that everyone else can read them, they were willing to like look at it and really appreciate what all the students were saying. And I think that made this process so much more enjoyable.
All right, thank you.
I'll add something.
Yeah.
Really, I want to thank HCC Theater and the team for taking this risk. A lot of people don't really know or understand what devised theater is, and there's so many types of devised theater. So I'm glad that we had the chance to do this, and I hope that we'll have more opportunity, you know, for students to really just come up with a one-of-a-kind piece, because it's just a really, really special process and journey. And I personally feel that it's so empowering for the group. So I'm really thankful that we've even had the chance to try this.
Yeah, and I'll just add briefly that I completely agree with that. And I'm so grateful for Fatima for leading us on this path, since devising was very new to me. So I learned so much doing this work. So I'm really grateful for that. And hopefully we can get the department maybe to do a devise piece every other year, which I think would be really exciting.
Thank you all for joining us today. It's been wonderful to see your faces and hear from you. I look forward to seeing this production.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
For more information on I Love Lucy, visit howardcc.edu/student theater. I'm Janelle Broderick for In the Spotlight. See you next time.